lesson that I've learned is nothing's permanent. Happiness is not permanent.
2 words, don't wait. It's powerful because when people ask me some of the greatest lessons I've experienced, it's those 2 words. Because I say, if you're going to learn any skill in life, the greatest skill you can learn.
Again, I use training, for example. You know, I'm a master of my field. When you talk about mastery and you talk about 10,000 hours, I've gone beyond that. You know, but at the end of the day, I'm still a student.
What happens is that when you go through a lot of failure, you realize its importance. It is very important to fail because
it makes my heart want to bleed. Oh! Now you got
3 favorite books. The first is The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann.
Welcome to the Winning Mindset Podcast. My name is Wale Adesomoye, your host. I'm a 5-time Muscle Model World Champion. I've traveled the world and trained with some of the best athletes on the planet, some of the best coaches on the planet. I'm the winner of the TV reality show called Last Man Standing, where 3 UK individuals and 3 US individuals travel the world to live with the toughest tribes on the planet. And guess what? I am the last man standing. I think I know a thing or two about winning. I'm here today with none other than Simon Alexander Ong. Simon, I hope I pronounced your name right, and I'm apologising already if I pronounced your name incorrectly. For the audience that don't know you, please introduce yourself and tell them what you're about.
Sure. So my first career was in the financial services industry. I started in that as soon as I graduated from university. Spent nearly 10 years doing that, in and out of jobs. And post that, I decided to quit the rat race, the 9-to-5 corporate world, and begin life on the entrepreneurship path. So it started with being a coach one-to-one with people, everyone from entrepreneurs to people in leadership positions. And then I got into speaking at companies, at conferences and festivals. And that led to doing some work with Sky News and BBC. And in 2020, just as the world was entering its first lockdown, I got a book deal with Penguin to write my first book, Energize.
Oh, it's here. It's right here.
Indeed. Yeah, no, so it's been a crazy journey, but you know, it's taught me so much, and I'm thankful for the people that have supported me on the way.
Amazing. For the audience out there that doesn't listen, that don't know, me and Simon met in Dubai. I was staying at the Energize hotel, beautiful hotel in the Palm, and I always love meeting people. So I met Simon's camera guy, which was amazing. Yeah. I met him and his wife in the gym, told me about you, and I was like, this guy sounds interesting. I must meet him for breakfast. You know, I'm away in Dubai. We're staying at the same hotels, and we met at like 7 a.m. for breakfast. And he was just so interesting, so intriguing. So I had to bring him onto the podcast, guy. And I think he didn't give a fair introduction of himself. He's a keynote speaker, he's a motivational speaker, he's out in Dubai doing some big stuff, and he's an amazing guy. But my first question to you is, what has motivated you and persuaded you to pursue your career path as an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, and a motivational speaker?
Sure, if I look back, Wally, I think the first event that inspired me to pursue the path I'm on was when I lost my mum at 17. So it was very unexpected. You know, often if you know you're going to lose someone, you can mentally prepare for it a little. But when it's unexpected, it changes your world. And there were many life lessons that happened in the days and the weeks post her funeral. And out of all the life lessons that came to me in that time, one stood out. And the lesson that stood out to me were 2 words: don't wait. And I learned post that if I could embrace those 2 words, don't wait, not only would it be my greatest antidote to regret, but it would set me on the path to fulfillment. So when I entered the world of finance and the crisis happened, I began questioning whether I was actually doing the work that was fulfilling to me. And it was at that point that the lesson came back: don't wait. And I asked myself, well, what did success mean to me? And I realized it was very different to what I was actually doing. And when I look at society, I notice that a lot of us are physically exhausted, not because we're doing too much, but because we're doing too little of the things that bring us joy. So really understanding for myself what success meant for me sent me down this rabbit hole to explore the world beyond what I knew. And then I tried lots of different things, they didn't work out, and eventually I came across coaching. I first thought, isn't this just being a good friend? Isn't this just kind of saying, hey, share with me your problems and I'll try and guide and help you in any way I can? But I didn't know you can monetize it. My girlfriend saw this advert for this 2-day seminar, so I went along to it with a very open mind. And by the end of the weekend, I said to her, I want to sign up to this because this feels like what I'm meant to do. And I signed up to it. I did it on the side of my full-time job, and within 2 years I qualified. And then I wanted to bring this work I was studying to the outside world. I wanted to share this with as many people as possible. So it was really a couple of things. The first was learning how short life was through the loss of my mum at a very young age, and then going through the financial crisis. For me, it was a blessing in disguise. At the time it wasn't. At the time I thought my world was crumbling. I had no future left. But in hindsight, it was a blessing because it made me question the path I was on. And those events can be powerful for us if we're willing to step back and seek the lesson in those moments.
I think you've just touched on a very important topic there for me, because I don't want to move on to the next question without acknowledging what you just said there. It's the things that you go through in life that makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And without going through the things or the struggles that you go through, like you mentioned that you felt that your world was crumbling during the financial crisis. And we all feel that way.
Yeah.
But one lesson that I've learned is nothing's permanent. Happiness is not permanent. Sadness is not permanent.
Yeah.
Whatever situation or whatever circumstances you're in, nothing is permanent. And it's very important that you acknowledge that. And also, if I can take anything away from this podcast, this conversation we're having right now, is don't wait. I love that. Simple little word like that. Literally, don't wait. 2 words.
2 words, don't wait. It's powerful because when people ask me some of the greatest lessons I've experienced, it's those 2 words. Because I say, if you're going to learn any skill in life, the greatest skill you can learn is to collapse that gap between idea and execution.
Yes.
I mean, it is so easy to get ideas. When you read a book, when you watch a documentary, when you have a conversation with a friend, you are flush with ideas. Ideas is not the problem. The problem is how many of those ideas are you actually implementing?
Yes.
Are you actually putting into action? And while we know life is short, we don't actually appreciate that fact. If we did, we would make very different choices.
Yeah.
And so once we appreciate how life is short, that is the moment we can channel our energy into truly living.
I love that. I have a simple analogy based on that. I do. There's motion and action. There's a difference in reading a book on how to get fit or how to build an optimum physique. And there's a massive difference actually executing and getting yourself underneath a bar and squatting. A lot of people are in motion in life. And I think, in all honesty, I fall under that bracket sometimes because procrastination, we think of rather than thinking of what if this goes right, the obstacles that gets in most of our ways in our own head is what if this goes wrong? It's like, what am I going to do if this doesn't work? So all of those questions is what we ask ourselves. And sometimes we don't have the answers to that immediately. So I love that. Don't wait. I think I'm going to steal that. I'm going to steal that word. Literally, don't wait. Because at the end of the day, action will beat procrastination. Yeah. Which is really good.
Absolutely.
A great lesson.
And just to put this in context, and we'll talk about how short life is, how important it is to take action. But sometimes we need something that wakes us up. Yeah. And my realization came when I saw a visual of how short life is. So let's say you get to live to the age of 80.
Yes.
Now you can visualize that as circles, each circle representing 1 year. So I'm going to be 40 this year. That means 50% of my circles are now filled in. I've only got another 50% left if I get to live until the age of 80. Also, if I get to live until the age of 80, that is 29,000 days or 4,000 weeks.
Wow.
when you think of it that way, it really drives home how short life is.
Wow. So just repeat that, please.
4,000 weeks or 29,000 days is what you get if, and it's a big if you get to live until the age of 80.
Wow.
Not all of us will get that privilege, but if you get to live until the age of 80, that is how much time you have. And so a lot of us are delaying our actions until the mythical land of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow never comes. What's in your control is now, this present moment, today. And it is the decisions you make today that determine where you arrive tomorrow.
That's crazy. That is so right. You know, that is so right. And that's something I always say to some of our online coaching clients.
Yeah.
Is when I sit down and have a meeting or have a consultation with someone, and I say, if you don't take action today, you won't take action tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, tomorrow may never come.
Indeed.
And to put it in that simpler terminology about how many days and how many weeks you have on this planet, I'm 44 right now. I've gone past the 50% of my life. So 36 years left of my life on this planet. If I have the best 36 years, that's weeks and only months. I can't believe it. And if you spend 50% of that sleeping as well, you know, realistically, we might as well half that. Do you know what I mean? You know, because we're not going to be awake for 24 hours. You know, we're going to spend best part of 8 to 10 hours sleeping, you know, most nights. And it's interesting when you put it like that. Honestly, it's really gave me goosebumps thinking of the way you've really put it, as simplicity as that.
And for me, when I think about time isn't necessarily length. You know, we kind of think as time as if I live 80 years on this planet, 80 years is the time I've lived. But actually, you can manipulate time. If you take action today towards where you want to be, and you're able to achieve in years what it takes people decades to get to because you've taken action today, that gives you the rare opportunity to live multiple lifetimes in your single lifetime. Because you're making far more progress than most ever will.
That's crazy. That's amazing, honestly. We can stay on this topic forever and continue talking about this particular topic. But I want to ask you, what challenges have you faced in your personal life, in business? You did mention the financial crisis. I want you to touch on that a little bit more. And you mentioned the death of your mother. I want you to touch on that a little bit more, because two of my biggest fear on this planet is going broke and dying. The two fears that drives me forward every day. And I work my arse off to make sure neither of those two happen. But I also spend like hell so I can go broke and go back to having money. Louis Vuitton must love me. Say no more.
No, you're right. I mean, challenges are important.
Yes.
We have to embrace challenges and also have a healthy relationship with it. We tend to go through life seeing challenges as bad.
Yes.
But challenges are good. Without them, you would not know how strong you are. You would not know what you are truly capable of. That is where your growth happens. You don't experience your greatest growth if everything is always going well.
No.
All that leads to is complacency.
Yes.
You get easily complacent. As I was saying to a friend recently, fast success builds ego, slow success builds character.
Oh, I love that.
Because if you experience success too quickly, all that's going to build is your ego. And this is why if you look at regional national lotteries, when people win an incredible sum of money, but it comes to them very quickly, and they've never experienced having significant sums of money before, you will see studies that show that within a couple of years, they waste that money and they enter a worse position than they were before they won the money. Because they're not used to that. They've had this fast success and suddenly they feel they're invincible. But when you go through slow success, which means you face challenges, you face setbacks, you have to learn, you have to reset, you have to restart, that builds character. Because it's through those challenges where you understand the importance of resilience, character, and your ability to respond in a healthy way. You don't learn that if everything's going well all the time. And so if I look at the challenges I faced numerous challenges over the years. One said on one of his social media posts, same devils, different levels. So he said same devils, different levels, which means that every level you move up in your life to, you're going to face challenges. They're different in nature, but you're still going to face challenges. So when I lost my mum at 17, I went further into my shell. I was already a shy kid. You know, I come from a Chinese background, so natural stereotype is we're shy. We do a lot of our academic work well, but we don't like to put ourselves out in the open. Now, for me, I went further into my shell after the death of my mom, because there wasn't many resources available at the time for managing your mental health.
Yes.
You were just told by people around you and your parents and family, toughen up, get on with it. You still got your exams to study towards, and you were just told to suck it up. Nowadays, there's so much more support available for people who go through these sort of experiences. And then I failed my second year of university, which is not something you want to tell your Chinese parents about.
No.
Imagine having to come down and in front of your family say, hey guys, I failed my second year of university. I'm going to have to resit it. And my 3-year degree is now going to become a 4-year degree. And that was the next challenge. I felt shame that I let the whole family down and I thrown away my future. That was the second big challenge. And then, of course, once I got into my first career, the next challenge was the financial crisis. I started in 2007, a year before the financial crisis swept across the planet. And just to make things a little interesting, the company I started with was Lehman Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Which
they don't exist anymore.
As we know, they don't exist anymore. And I kind of look back with a bit of humor, and say maybe it was the universe trying to tell me I wasn't meant to be employed. So they put me in a position of failing my university degree. They put me in a position where I couldn't keep a job longer than a couple of years, just to tell me maybe I'm not meant for this. And of course, challenges came more after that. When I quit the world of work, the next challenge was building a business. The first 2 years were very tough, and then it kind of taught me what I needed to know, because nobody around me had ever started a successful business. So I had to learn on the job, and things did go wrong, very wrong in the first couple of years. But I think that was my best lesson, because I couldn't read any of this in a textbook. Nothing beats doing something for real. And so once I got those lessons, it allowed me to bounce to that next level. And I still face challenges today, different. So challenges I face today come to hiring. Who do I hire? How do I hire? How do I make sure I get good talent? And then there's a challenge of, well, what do I do next in terms of my business? I've got coaching, I've got speaking, I've got books, and there's lots of other things I want to get involved in. So you are always going to face your fair share of challenges, and you can either run from them or you can run towards them with the focus of learning from it, of seeing it as fuel to make you stronger and to become who you know you can be.
That's amazing. I mean, I think challenge is definitely what makes us. Challenge is what makes us. For me, I faced my fair share of challenges along the way. One of my biggest challenges that I always discuss openly is that I suffer from dyslexia. And that's something I was very embarrassed of at an early age, and it's something I hid. I've been a London firefighter for 24 years. I struggled to read and write till I was 15. It's something I still struggle with till today. It's something that's become my superpower. So my failure to do something has become a superpower rather than actually being a hindrance to me. The reason why it's become a superpower is because now I know if I'm doing anything, I have to try it twice as hard as someone like yourself. You talked about failing your second year at university. For me, my life has been a failure, but I'm a very successful person now. Do you know what I mean? When I look back at my life, I think you've done well. I'm proud of you, son. And that's the way I feel. And I think it's important that we understand that the challenges that we face doesn't necessarily define us as an individual, because it makes us stronger. A lot of people look at it as a hindrance. Like, for example, neurodiversity in the last sort of 10, 20 years has only been something that the world is aware of. Neurodiversity, when I was at school, you was just known as the thick kid. They put you in a lower class because you're slowing the rest of the class down. They didn't give you the time of the day. The teachers didn't bother as much with you because you didn't understand what they were trying to teach. The kids that were bright and understood what they were trying to teach, the teachers paid more attention to that. I get it as an adult. It's like, someone that can do the things that I want them to do as a client is those that I'm going to sometimes pay attention to. But I get it. But I think what's important is that if you're facing challenges out there, what advice can you give to someone to overcome those challenges and not to give up on themselves and know that the best is still yet to come?
I think the very first thing, and it goes back to the word you mentioned just now, Wale, which is failure. The very first thing to understand is that success and failure are not opposites. I grew up with this mistaken belief that you either succeed or you fail. But what I've come to learn is that you cannot experience great levels of success without failing along the way.
I love that.
Because whenever you go on a new path that you've never been on before, of course things are going to be uncertain, and that means you're going to fail because you've never been on the path before. But it's not whether you fail or not, it's how you respond to that failure. So if you can look at every experience you go through as neutral and take a step back when it happens and choose your response, that is what is going to help you thrive over the long term. Because when an event happens, an event itself is not good or bad. An event is just an event. You as a human, you have to make meaning from that event. And this is why the same event for some people could be viewed as good and to other people viewed as bad. You get to choose its meaning. And so when you understand how powerful that insight is, you then realize that there is no one common reality. There is only customized realities. So the way you go through life will be different to the way I do.
Yes.
But if you know that, you can get to choose your own reality. You can choose one thought over another, and it changes your experience of an event. So let's say you've gone through trauma in the past, and it could be personal or professional trauma. Now, if you attach a very negative emotion to it, i.e. you see it as something that was bad, then your relationship to it will be very different than if you saw it as good.
Yes.
Now, if you saw that trauma as good, as it helped you make the decisions you had to make to become the person you are today, suddenly it's the closest you get to time travel. Because now you go back to that moment in history, you change your relationship with it to something positive, and every event after that now changes.
Yeah, it's amazing what you're saying, because that being able to relate something to, because a lot of people would look at failure and relate it to something that maybe they've done as a kid, or why they're not good at something, why they can't do something, and just being able to shift that mindset of thinking failure not in a negative format but more of a positive format, and rather than I'll use relationship for a prime example. I think relationship as a man to all of us is something we look at, and I used to feel like I failed in a relationship. I'm no good at relationship, and guess what? The more I reiterate that to myself, guess what? I was no good at relationships. I kept on failing in relationship. But now when a relationship breaks down for me, I'm talking between a female and a male, I'm looking at it like, what lessons did I learn from that relationship?
Absolutely.
So I don't take those mistakes into my next relationship. And that's something that I ask myself. And I think like it leads me to my next question of what you're saying about, failure. What has it taught you along the way? And how do you sort of like utilize your failure as almost a superpower to propel you to your destination of success?
I think the impact it's had on me is not seeing failure as something bad, but seeing it as something good. And what it's made me do is see this whole journey as a game. Because if you can see something as a game, it becomes more fun. And when something is fun, it gives you more energy. The thing you don't want to experience in any personal development journey is seeing a process as a chore. Because if something feels like a chore, it's going to drain you of energy. But if you can find a way to make it more fun and game-like, what happens is the energy you put into it and how you show up is vastly different. So when I go into a creative project, I don't go into it and say, hey, if this fails, then it's a bad thing. I just see it as an experiment. Let's conduct a lot of experiments this year. Here are all the ideas I have. Let's just see what works. Amazing. Because I know that the only real way to know if something works is to put it out to the market. It's to get feedback. One of the things, and I know I shared this with you when we first met in Dubai, I started this year was focusing on my YouTube channel. Now, I had no idea what success or failure would look like because I'd never really focused my efforts on growing this YouTube. So I had no reference point. For me, I just saw the thing as an experiment. Let's try this, let's experiment, let's try different titles, let's see what content resonates and just put it out there. And within a few months, we've grown the channel from 0 to nearly 30,000 subscribers.
Amazing.
And had some videos do really well. And we're just learning from it again and again and again. Because if we're open to being an eternal student, there's no end.
I love it.
You're always learning.
I love it.
You're always learning because there's always something more to know.
Forever
You're never the finished product.
No.
Yeah.
I always love it. Like for me, I think you never, like, again, I use training, for example. You know, I'm a master of my field. You talk about mastery and you talk about 10,000 hours. I've gone beyond that, but at the end of the day, I'm still a student. And I always walk into the gym as a student, looking at things that people are doing, good or bad, to see what I can learn, and that's my classroom. I think forever student and having an open mindset, it's very important. But one thing I want to return back to is the common denominator of the people that I've had so far on this podcast and how much of a high level of failure that they had prior to their success. So how do you cope with the failures that you've had in the past and to propel you to where you are today and a very well sought after keynote speaker and a motivational speaker and an author as well? How do you balance all of that out and how do you manage to be so positive after all of the failure, the loss of your mother, you know, failing your second year of university. You know, I never went to university, so I wouldn't know how that feels. Do you know what I mean? You know, how do you cope?
I think what happens is that when you go through a lot of failure, you realize its importance. It is very important to fail, because if you are going to survive it and become this extraordinary person deep down you know you can be, i.e. the hero of your own story, you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. There's this story I share in a book about the entrepreneur Sarah Blakely, the world's youngest self-made female billionaire. And she shared a story about this conversation she would have with her dad at the end of every week. So when she was a teenager, coming back from school at the end of each week, her dad would ask her at the dinner table, "Sarah, what did you fail at?" And if Sarah didn't have anything to share, her dad wouldn't be very happy. But if she did have something to share, her dad would high-five her and congratulate her. Now, at the time, Sarah didn't understand what was going on. In her head, she was thinking, well, when I came home, I thought he would congratulate me that I was top of the class or I made the cheerleading team. But he was only happy if I had something to share in which I failed at. And it was only when she started her business, when she became an entrepreneur, she realized, looking back, that what her father was trying to teach her was that failure is not about not trying. Failure is never about the outcome, but failure is not trying.
Yes.
So if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't take a risk, if you don't try to step outside of your comfort zone, to go beyond the edges of your map, that is what failure really is. Because that is the greatest risk, to not know who you are and what your potential is about.
It's amazing what you say that, because when you look at, there was an interesting book that was written about a nurse that was looking after people in a nursing home towards the end of their life. I think it was like, she was like end of life care.
Yeah.
And some of the most common thing that came up in that wasn't about the things that they did, but it's the things that they didn't do. About their biggest regrets in life. So when you look at regrets in life, people didn't regret the actions that they took, but they regret the action that they didn't take. So not trying, not taking action on your thoughts and your initiatives and the things that you wanted to do is what people were really regretting on their deathbeds.
Absolutely. If I remember correctly, it was Bronnie Ware. She said the top regret after dying was the fact they wished they lived a life more true to themselves than a life lived for others.
Yes.
And so if we want to live a life true to ourselves, the first thing to do is to ask ourselves, what does success mean to you?
Yes.
You have to own that definition. Now, for some of us, it could be something as simple as being a good parent. For others, it could be building a successful business. Now, as long as you know for yourself what your definition is, you now have a metric that you can refer to in measuring your success. And the second, if you want to overcome the inevitable failures and challenges and setbacks in life, is you want to make your present day decisions and choices off your future self, not your past self.
Amazing.
Because a lot of us, when we make a present moment decision, we're making it from our past self. So you might come to a problem where the solution is so obvious it is in front of you, but because you've had certain experiences in the past, you're blind to the solution. You're influenced by what came before. However, if you make that present day decision based on your future self, so you think forward, say 20 years from now, what is that successful version of me like? What is he or she doing? Where are they living? Who are they spending time with? How are they living their successful life? Again, your definition. Now, what happens is when you immerse yourself in that future self, you 20 years from now, and then you time travel back to this very moment today as that future self, notice what choices he or she would make right now. And it's very powerful. So
it's powerful but difficult.
Powerful but difficult. But
I have to touch on that, because without going off topic, I have to touch it. It's very difficult to propel yourself 20 years or 10 years into the future and ask about the decision that you'll be making in 20 years or 10 years time. But very easy to take yourself back 10, 20 years of the experience that you've had and worry about those and think my decision is based on, it's like a hot oven. We know from experience, you touch that, you're going to get burnt. So that's registered in your head. Don't touch anything hot. So it's very hard to
it is more challenging. Because
and how do you do that?
If you've never had experience in this before, when you first do an activity like this, the vision or the visuals you're going to have in your head will be quite vague. But what happens is the more action you take, the clearer that visual becomes, because you can only understand or see what that future version looks like based on the information you have today.
Yes.
And when you first start in your journey, that information you have today is very limited.
Yeah.
But as you take more steps forward, you get more information. You try more stuff, you get more information. You understand what works and what doesn't work. You learn more about yourself, and that feeds into that vision. So that vision becomes bolder, brighter, more colorful over time. But we all have some basic idea. You know, if you were to ask someone, what does the best version of you look like? What would the successful version of you be doing? If you had 10 out of 10 in every area of your personal and professional life, what would that look and feel like? Now, we all have some basic idea of what that looks and feels like, and we just start from there at the beginning. And then we associate ourselves with that identity. So to give you an example, which some people can relate to, let's say I project myself forward and I see myself living a healthy life. I see myself acting like an athlete, living like an athlete, living a long and healthy life. Now, if I project just that one bit of information back to the present day Simon, I know that when I go into that supermarket and I'm doing my weekly shop, I'm not going to be pushing my trolley down the junk food aisle.
No.
It's made for me. The decision's already made. Because I'm operating from that future identity of an athlete, then what happened is my trolley goes straight to the fresh fruit and veg counters.
Yeah.
I don't have to make these decisions. So when you are clear on your future identity, i.e. who must you become
Yes.
to have the things you want,
Yeah.
your decisions are made.
I actually read that in Atomic Habit. Great book, one of my favorite books. You know, in regards to future pacing and talking about an example analogy that you use is if you're going to make a bad decision around the dinner table in a supermarket, you got to be like, what would an athlete version of myself do?
Absolutely.
And, you know, what would an athlete version of Simon do? What would an athlete version of Wale do? Would an athlete version of Wale, you know, go and get a tub of ice cream? Or would an athlete type of Wale go and get some fruit and vegetables? You know, so, you know, that's definitely that element of it in regards to visualization and future pacing. Yeah. Because you ask yourself a simple question, really, you know, rather than saying, I'm just going to... Because society is easy, it makes everything so easy for us.
Yeah.
You know, accessibility of junk food is easy, things that we can get, pleasure. Sugar gives you probably more pleasure than cocaine. Honestly, it's more addictive than cocaine, you know, so it's so addictive and it makes it easy for us, you know, and it's interesting. So I think future pacing, asking yourself questions and looking at yourself in the future is very good. I think that makes it a lot easier for me to understand.
Yeah, it's powerful
when it comes to visualization of where you want to be in the next sort of 10 to 15 years or 20 years even.
Yeah, even when we think about visualization, you would have heard of this term called vision board.
Yes.
You know, you kind of get this big cardboard, you put images of all the sort of things you want to experience in life.
Yeah.
Now, for me, yes, that's useful, but what is even more powerful, because again, in order to make real change, there has to be a level of emotion.
Yes.
You're never going to make real change unless there's a bit of emotion involved. It's like, you know, you would never run into a burning building to save people. You would wait for the firemen and women to come and save them. But if it was somebody close to you in that building, all logic gets thrown out the window and you're running into that building.
Exactly.
That's emotion. And so if you can bring in emotion, it makes your decision to take action even more powerful. So with a vision board, one method to make it more powerful is to change a vision board, which is something that's 2D, into something that is 3-dimensional. And the way to do that is to practice something called a real life vision board.
Yes.
So let's say on my vision board, the 2D version is me driving a nice red Tesla car. Now, I can have it on my vision board, but it's very 2D. It's quite hard to connect to that.
Yeah.
Now, imagine if I then go to my local Tesla car dealership and I book a test drive in a red Tesla car.
Yeah.
Now, I'm immersing my emotion in the fact that this is actually happening now. Even though it's for a short time, my senses are immersed in the fact that this is possible.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to, at some point in the future on your vision board, you have a nice apartment overlooking a park in a city, go onto somewhere like Airbnb, book an apartment overlooking a city, even for one night, and now you're immersing your senses in the fact that, again, this is possible. And so what happens is that it tells your subconscious, this is possible, how are we going to make this happen?
I love that.
So it actually activates the subconscious to show it a reference point. This is possible, we're actually here right now. So we're actually showing ourselves this can be done, even if it's a short time frame. How do we now make this our reality.
I love it. I think I'm going to call that the Roger Bannister effect. The reason I'm going to refer to that, for those that don't know, Roger Bannister, the first guy to run the first sub 4 minute mile. And after he did it, around 26 other people did it after him. So I'm going to call it the Roger Bannister effect, because if you don't believe it can happen or don't see it happening, it would never happen, because people do set up a vision board and it goes in the kitchen, it goes somewhere, and things that they're putting that may never happen. So I like the 3D version of a vision board, and actually going to rent a car, or test drive a car, rent an apartment, or even go and view an apartment that looks over a car.
Absolutely.
Park. Sorry, excuse me. So it's important. Habits. Let's move on to habits. What are your sort of 3 daily habits? I'm a massive fan of habits, because for me, I love habits. So one of my favorite books is Atomic Habits. And when I talk about habits, what are your 3 top habits that's helped you and led you to your success?
3 daily habits that have helped me. I would say the first one that comes to my mind is exercise as a non-negotiable.
I love that.
Now, what I mean by exercise as a non-negotiable, and I use exercise specifically because exercise doesn't have to involve going to a gym. For a lot of people, we associate doing exercise with having to go to a gym.
Yes.
And it can be overwhelming, especially if you've never been to the gym before. And
it's intimidating for me.
Yeah, it's intimidating because it's not something you do on a regular basis, and you might not even find that to be your thing.
Yeah.
So the reason I say exercise is that it's important that whatever you do, it's fun for you.
Yeah.
So for some people it might be cycling on their bike, going swimming, walking in nature, doing an outdoor class, mountain climbing, whatever it is. But find your version of exercise and make sure you're doing something every day. And for those people who say I don't have time, what I challenge them with is this: you saying I don't have time is telling me that your health is not a priority for you. That's what you're really saying. You have time. The question is something like your health important to you? If it is, you will make the time for it. And this is why I say, if you look at a day has 24 hours in it.
Yeah.
If you dedicate just 1 hour to moving your body, that's less than 5% of your day, 4.2% to be exact.
Wow.
I mean, if you can't dedicate 4.2% of your day to moving your body, I mean, what does that tell you?
Well, a lot of people prioritize on different things, let's be honest. And exercise, I always say, without your health, you're nothing. And I always think you actually saying that exercise is one of your top habits and your first top non-negotiable, it puts a smile on my face, because for me, it's so important, because your health, you don't have any future without your health. You don't have any family, you don't have any career, you don't have any wealth. Without your career, you have absolutely zero. This is why I don't understand why people don't prioritize on what's the most important aspects of the overall them. It's so important. Like, my health is everything to me. So I totally agree with you with exercise. That's my number one habit as well.
It is why I started the book. The very first chapter is called Invest in Your Health. So many of us make our health a side hustle. But going to what you're saying, if you're healthy, you will have lots of hopes and dreams.
Yes.
But if you're sick, you only have one.
Exactly.
To be well again.
Exactly.
And so if you want the energy required to achieve all of the other things in your life, you need to have a good foundation. For a house, the foundation is important so it can withstand weather conditions. For you to achieve your goals, your health is your foundation.
Yes.
If you don't have a solid foundation, you're not going to have the energy required to get things done. So the first habit is exercise. For me, it's a domino effect, because making that a non-negotiable meant that exercising on a regular basis made me want to eat better. Eating better gave me more energy. Seeing that my lifestyle was changing made me want to sleep better. So it has a huge impact on all other areas of your life. So that's the first habit. The second is thinking about how to add value to at least one person's life every day.
Oh, wow.
And this is because I'm a believer that your value as a human being is determined by how much more you have given to the world than you have taken from it. Because that's what people remember you for.
Amazing.
How has this person impacted my life in some small way? And so the question I get people to reflect on is, how can I add value to someone's life today? And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be something as simple as, I don't know, somebody shared on social media that they're looking to start a new job and it's in an industry they've never been in before. And I might think, actually, why don't I send them a book that I came across recently that talks about how to pivot their careers and do it successfully? That could be the value that I add to that person's life. It could be connecting two people together. again, these don't have to be grand gestures. They can be something very small and easy to do. But the more you do that, not only are you having an impact on other people, but I believe karma comes around.
Yes.
What happens is the more you add value to people's life, eventually that value is going to come back to you.
100%.
And I've seen that happen again and again and again.
100%. Like for me, those two first habits to me is something that really strikes home with me, because I think it's important to add value to people's life. I do that every day through my social media, and if I can bless one person a day for the rest of my life, I'll be a very blessed man. So those two top habits that you've got is something that I'm very passionate about. So Absolutely. What's your third?
The third one is reading or learning. And I say all learning because nowadays we have options. You don't have to read. You can listen to a podcast like we're recording here. You can watch a YouTube video. You can listen to an audiobook. But the thing is, make daily learning a habit.
That's really good.
What happens is that the more knowledge you're able to feed yourself, and here's the bracket part, and apply it, what happens is you're going to become top of your field in a matter of years.
Yes.
Because what happens is, when people finish formal education, when they finish going through college or they do the exams they have to qualify in their field, we tend to read a lot less.
Yeah.
We tend to learn less than we ever have, because now it's not essential. We had to do it in order to get a qualification, but now it's up to us. What do? We waste that time. But if we focus our time on learning within our field, learning beyond our field, what happens is that feeds our creativity. That gives us more ideas and insights that we can action upon.
Yeah, I think I love learning, and I think all of the things that you've talked about there in regards to health, in regards to actually making sure you assist someone and help someone every day, and remaining forever a student, they're three things that are, I will say, that my top habits as well, in regards to just being a better human. You know, I just call it being a good human, you know, being a good human, making sure you're serving your society well, because, you know, you mentioned a very, very important topic there. People take a lot more from the world than they give. You know, and that's very common, that people take a lot from the world than they give. And it's important that we give something back to the world, and that could be anything. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture like you mentioned. You know, it could just be just like a simple thing of like sending someone a book link. It could be something simple, you know, but for me, it's about, longevity I'm very passionate about. You know, as I reach I'm 44 years old now, and I really want to make sure that, again, I live as long as possible. Like I said to you, one of my biggest fears is dying, and I want to make sure that the things that I'm doing in my 40s, I want to carry on doing them into my 50s, into my 60s, into my 70s, and that's important. So I love that. How do you maintain a winning mindset against setbacks and, you know, and failure? How do you maintain that winning mindset?
You maintain it the easiest if you have an environment around you that makes it impossible not to succeed.
Oh, I love that.
That is how you maintain it, because of course we're human, which means you're going to have days where you feel on top of the world and euphoric, and there'll be days where you just don't feel like getting out of bed. Now, what keeps you focused throughout the long haul is your environment. Now, when I talk about environment, it's not just who you spend time with. It's what you read, it's what you watch, what you listen to, your physical spaces, your digital spaces. But most importantly, which a lot of us I think overlook, is who your partner is.
Yes.
Who your partner is the person, other than yourself, that you're going to spend most of your time with.
Yes.
And so they can either encourage you to take some risks, or they can limit you from taking risks. And so I think it's one of life's greatest hack, is finding the right partner, being with the right person that is going to not only support you, but also challenge you to be better than who you were yesterday.
Yeah, I love that. I think partnering up with someone as male, female, male, female, whatever your options, it's very important. I mean, we're very, we look at aesthetic aspects of a woman. When we look at a woman, we want a beautiful looking woman. We want nice things. And, you know, rather than actually looking for things that's going to bring us value, as who's going to push us and push us forward and propel us to the destination where we should be. And I think that's very important. And I only took that on board in my late 30s. Seeing how important the person you're with, they can either hinder your progression or propel your progression. You know, I'll say that again. The partner that you choose to be with can either hinder your progression or propel your progression, because they can either be in competition with you because you're in the same field and you're doing better than them, rather than them seeing it as, okay, if he does well, I'm also winning. You know, it's not about him doing well and I'm doing well. It's not us and them, it's us.
It's we. And
you know,
this is why I, you know, if I look at the dedication of my book, it's to my wife. Because I've always been of the opinion that when I win, we win.
Yes.
When she wins, we win.
Yeah.
When we win together. When we fail, we learn together.
So important.
And so if you approach your relationship with your partner as a team, you are setting yourself up to win again and again. But the issue becomes if you start seeing yourself in competition, or one of you starts seeing yourself better than each other, without understanding that you're better in different ways and that you can complement each other in different ways. So when you can approach it as a team where you can support and encourage each other throughout the good and bad times, that becomes a very powerful unit.
Definitely. I think it's important. Communication is something that I was never good at when I was growing up. But again, I've got better at communication within, you know, relationships as I've got older. And I think it's important to maintain that communication and have an open communication with your partner. Whatever you're doing, this is one of the first things I say to all my clients. I say to them, look, have a conversation with your wife, have a conversation with your husband, let them know that you've now got a coach, show them my Instagram, let them know what I look like, introduce me. If they want to speak to me, come and meet me, let's have a coffee. Let them know when you're going to be training, because let them know what you're going to be eating, so there's no complaints, because then you need the support from them, from the word go, for you to achieve your desired results. You need the people around you. And when you say about the people around you, your environment, I want to go back on that. Eagles don't fly with pigeons. You want to surround yourself with eagles. And it's so important that you surround yourself with people, like-minded individuals. An analogy, an example that I would give is, I'm in a business mentoring space for online coaches. The reason I'm in that space is to surround myself with like-minded individuals who are making the money, or they're making the impact, or making the changes, that are doing the things that I want to do. So when I come against an obstacle, I can go to an expert within that field and say, has anyone else faced this obstacle? And how have you overcome it? It's so important that you surround yourself with the right people, you know. And you know, what's the key phrase that they use there? You're a reflection of your 5 friends that you hang around with, you know. So people make the wrong decision. You know, you see amazing people that get into the wrong crowd and get into drugs, get into gambling, get into partying, get into stealing, get into robbing. Whatever they do, it's just that you got to surround yourself with the right people to make sure you maintain that sort of positivity and the trajectory of where you want to be in life.
And what it teaches us is that we never get to the top alone.
No,
you never get to the top alone. When I look at my book, I mean, that one of the best parts I enjoyed writing of the book was not a chapter. It was the acknowledgement section.
Yes.
Because it made me look back on my journey and realize just how many people have had an impact on me being where I am today. From working with my very first coaches, to my family and friends, to the people that first booked me to speak and who were my first clients, the people who lent their time to me when I was going through a tough time. All of these individuals in their own way have influenced who I am today.
It's amazing, because like you touch on that, saying no one gets to the top alone. And I'm a big fan of that. So you're a coach yourself and you've invested in coaching. Just out of interest, over the years, how much do you think you've invested monetary into coaching to get you to where you are today?
I would say comfortably hundreds of thousands. And the coaching has come through various forms. So it would have been group coaching, hiring someone to work with one-on-one, going onto courses, being part of groups myself. And they've all been powerful in their own ways. I always say a worthy investment for me is if I sign on to something or I work with someone. If one thing comes out of that, I mean, there will likely be more, as there has been, but if just one thing comes out of it that transforms my journey in some way, that for me is good ROI.
That's amazing.
That is good return on investment.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm a big fan of coaching. Like I said, I've got a business coach, I've got a mindset coach, and I've got a health and fitness coach, even as a coach myself. And this is something that I say to people, that coaching is about working with someone that's going to help you carve the path to where you're going with someone who's already been to where you want to get to. So the ability to kind of simplify things for you along the way and assist you down a path of where the destination you want to get to. It's almost like, I refer to coaching as like going somewhere with a sat nav.
Yeah.
Rather than using the old school A to Z. Do you know how it is back in the day?
And here's the thing
before the sat nav became popular.
Yeah. And here's the thing, every hero needs a guide.
Yeah.
Every hero needs a guide. I mean, Frodo had Gandalf, Neo had Morpheus, Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan Kenobi. We all need a guide in our life.
Yeah.
Because if we can tap into other people's insights, if we can leverage other people's energy, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? There's a way to get to where you want to be faster, and that challenge is going to push you out of your comfort zone, but in a healthy way, and you really get to see your potential. Why wouldn't you want that?
I love that. I mean, that leads me nicely onto my next question in regards to having a guide. Who has been your biggest influence in life and in business to put you where you are today?
Well, I mean, this is linked to what I said about environment. It has to be my wife. It has to be my wife, because she's the only person who has seen firsthand the struggles, the successes, the setbacks, the questioning. Points in my journey I questioned whether I could do something. No one outside the household would have seen that. I mean, my wife was the only person that was there, able to listen to all my worries and feedback what she thought, and kind of gave me the nudge forwards that I needed at the time. So I would say my wife has been the biggest influence.
That's amazing. What's your wife's name?
My wife's name's Laurie, and we met at university.
Yeah.
It's funny actually, Wale, because if I didn't fail my second year of university, we would never have met.
Oh, wow.
So we met in my fourth year at university, which should have been the year I went into the world of work.
Yeah.
But because I failed, I had to stay back for another year.
That's amazing.
And that's where we met at university. And we were both in finance at the time when we graduated. And I quit first. I quit the Board of Employment first. And the beginning, when I couldn't afford, I now work with people like Casey, we met in Dubai.
Yeah.
So I now have teams I work with. But at the time, I couldn't afford to hire a team. And so she would be the one coming to my events, taking my photos and videos when I couldn't afford anyone else. And she would be the one feeding back to me, this went well, this could have gone better. She was one feeding back,
biggest fan.
helping me to develop.
Your biggest fan.
My biggest fan.
I love it.
And it's great, to go from that to where I am now. And she's been the one constant throughout that journey I've been on. And now I get the chance. I'm going to Singapore in a couple of weeks' time to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing my daughter with me, so she's going to see me for the first time live on stage. She's seen my stuff on YouTube, and she's seen me speak on social media, but she's never been in a room live when I've spoken. So to give her now the opportunity to see me speak, I'm looking forward to it.
That's amazing. It's amazing that your wife's actually your biggest influence in business and in life, and that to me is just a round of applause to her as a woman. Because
absolutely.
there's a massive round of applause to her as a woman, because I just think we all need someone to guide us down the path of where we want to go, and someone just to see that hint of success that we don't even see in ourselves. Because believe it or not, there's loads of obstacles that I've faced along the way that makes me question my ability. Ability as a coach, ability as a person, ability as a son, ability as a brother. Am I doing this right? Have I made the right decision? And you just need someone in your ear to say, you're doing really well, I'm proud of you. This is the right trajectory. You've done this good. You've done that. This is what you need to improve on.
And it helps your belief. It helps your belief. One of the things I say to people when it comes to belief is that in life there are always two sales that occur. Yeah. The second sale is selling you to others. Yeah. And the first is selling you to you. And until you can sell you to you, the second will always remain the challenge.
Oh, I love that.
But if you have someone, in my case, my wife, who has this trust in me that when I'm not sure if I'm making the right decision, or I'm unsure about something, when she says something like, whatever decision you make, I'll be backing you. That's the sort of trust and support that we could all benefit from.
That's amazing.
And so it gives me the confidence and belief that if I go forward, whatever happens, I've got her behind me supporting with whatever the result will be, because I can't control the outcome.
No.
I can only make the best decision I can given the information I have now.
I think a lot of the time when we're doing things, we focus a lot solely on the outcome.
Yeah.
If I do this, what would I get? It's almost like, if I do this, what the outcome would be? So focusing on doing your best and the process rather than the outcome is definitely something that's good. And your wife sounds like an incredible woman in regards to giving you the support along the way. And that's amazing. Everyone needs like a hero that you say, and your wife being your biggest hero is probably your best friend at the same time. Yeah. The person you spend the most time with. away from working and traveling, you're going to spend the most time with your partner.
Yeah.
And that's so important. You mentioned earlier about choosing the right partner, and also you mentioned about the 4th year where you should have graduated. You shouldn't even be at that university.
I shouldn't have been there. Yeah.
Is where you met your wife. So what was the occasion and how did you guys meet?
Yeah, it was really random actually. So I got an internship with Lehman Brothers, which obviously I converted to a full-time when I graduated.
Yeah.
And because at the time, I didn't know it at the time, but I spoke very well on stage. So they said, actually, Simon, we could use you at the careers fair. So I was at London School of Economics and they were coming to the university to advertise for internships and graduate positions.
Yeah.
And they said, Simon, would you like to be one of our representatives to talk about your experience working at Lehman Brothers during the summer? And I said, sure. So this was at the time when Facebook was just coming out and rolling out to universities. It was called The Facebook at the time. Yeah. And I met a lot of people that night, as you do when you're on one of these booths. And I didn't recall who she was that night because I got sent so many messages on my Facebook after, but like, here's good to me, I got a few more questions, and I was responding to everyone. And the next morning, and this is where I think the universe works in our favor, the next morning I overslept because it was a bit of a late night working at this event. And so I went to the class which I meant to go to first at 9 in the morning. I went to the 11 o'clock class. Yeah. Because I missed the 9 to 10 and the 10 to 11. Yeah. And she also was late, but for a different reason, because she had wrapped up gym a bit later than she expected. Yeah. And so we both went to this 11 o'clock class that we were both students in. And as I was waiting outside for a friend, she came up to me and she said, wait, aren't you Simon from last night? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm actually catching up with a friend for lunch. Do you want to join us? And then we were just friends for a few months, and then it naturally progressed from friends to very good friends to dating, and the rest is history. Exactly. I love that. I love a good romance story. Oh, makes my heart want to bleed. Oh. Now you got a little 4-year-old as well. So yeah, 4-year-old daughter. What's your daughter's name? Her name is Sienna. Sienna. And amazing. The great thing so far is that she sees public speaking as something that is normal. Yeah. Because she sees me do it all the time. And again, it goes back to this environment. Because she sees me speaking all the time, recording videos, talking on camera, talking on stage, it's giving her the confidence to share her stories when she's at school. So when a teacher invites people to come up to the front of the class and share what they did in the weekend, she's a little more comfortable to do that. That's amazing. So it's just great seeing how she's developing by looking at what my wife and I are both up to. That's amazing. You sound like you got an amazing family there. Yeah. We can't have your book on the table here without talking about your book and talking about what are your 3 favorite books and 3 favorite quotes. And what has inspired you to write this? You did mention it, it's your wife that inspired you to write this. But, I want you to give me a list of your 3 favorite book and your 3 favorite quotes. Yeah. And also, what's your favorite chapter in this book? Well, 3 favorite books. The first is The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. The essence of that book is that the secret to success is giving. Yeah. And it goes through the stratospheric laws of success. So if you follow the book, it's very short actually. If you enjoy reading, you'll probably finish it in one night. It's a short parable, but it's full of powerful lessons that you can apply in life and business. So The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. Go-Giver. The second one, it's a really interesting book because it's written in bullet points. Yeah. So not really like your typical book. I like that. Which makes it good for just flicking through and you land on something that goes, wow, this really impacted me in this moment. And it's 2 books. They're part of the same series. So Volume 1 and Volume 2. And it's called The Teachings of Billionaire Yen Zhu. Okay. And The Teachings of Billionaire Yen Zhu is looking to bring together teachings of Eastern philosophy with how we can apply it in the West. So it's built around the sort of Chinese horoscope. So you have the animal, and then it gives a story about the animal's characteristics and traits, and how we can take that into the way we live our life. So for me, that's the second book that I go to again and again. And then the third one I read more recently, is The Third Door by Alex Banayan. Yeah. And the reason I like it is because what it talks about is something I've been doing in my entrepreneurial career without realizing what I was doing. And he just formalized it in this idea called the third door. Yeah. And the essence of the third door is this. When you go to a nightclub, there are 2 doors. The first door is the main entrance. It's where 99% of people go in. Yeah. So you queue up, you queue up with a group of friends, and you hope the bouncer lets you in. You pay your ticket, and then you're into the club. The second door is the red carpet entrance. It's for the influencers, the VIPs, and the celebrities. But there is always a third door that you can create. So it could be the fact that you know someone in the cleaning team who gives you a spare key that you can now enter via the side entrance, or it could be the fact you have a mutual friend with the manager of the club. So now you go through the third door. And so the book talks about the importance of creating your own third doors to accelerate your journey. And one of the stories I love from the book is how Steven Spielberg became Steven Spielberg. So the path he should have taken was to go to film school, get qualified, submit his films into festivals, hopefully win something, and then try and get a chance to showcase his work to a big distributor. But he decided to create his own third door. He went on a tour bus to one of these production studios like Universal Studios, and while the tour bus left the site, he snuck into a cubicle in the toilets to stay there so he could stay on site at the studio while the tour bus went off. And he used that to network with the directors on site and to submit his films to the people in that company.
Wow.
And thereby he bypassed the process of having to spend years going through film school by creating his very own third door.
Amazing. That's amazing.
So those are the 3 books there.
Wow. What about quotes?
So quotes, so many quotes. There's one that comes to my mind now by the Indian philosopher Patanjali, who wrote that when you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, your thoughts break their bonds, your mind transcends limitation, and your consciousness expands in every direction. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents awaken, and you find yourself to be far greater than you ever imagined.
Wow.
The reason why, for me, that's a powerful quote is because when you do something that makes you feel alive, that gives you energy, it actually gives you more energy.
Yes.
When you do something that excites you, it gives you more energy. And it awakens all of these forces we have within us that we didn't know existed. So that's the first quote that comes to mind. It's one that I've enjoyed rereading over many years. And the second one is from Confucius. And it goes, "You have 2 lives. The second begins the moment you realize you have only one."
Wow.
And that for me is very powerful.
That's very powerful.
Because this goes back to what we touched on at the beginning of this conversation.
Don't wait.
Which is don't wait.
Don't wait.
And when you truly understand you only have one life, that's when you begin your second life. You realize there's no time to waste. And the second life starts now.
That's amazing.
So that's the second quote that, again, is one that I go back to again and again just to remind myself, because we can easily forget some of these life lessons and life truths. And the other quote, and I can't remember who originally said it, but the other quote goes, "If you do what is easy in life, life will be hard. If you do what is hard, life will be easy."
Yes.
So what that means is that if you make the hard choices today, life will eventually be easy.
Yes.
But if you make the easy choices today, life will eventually be hard. So it's easy, for example, to go out and buy junk food and just eat that. But then life will be hard later.
Yes.
Because then you face illness and you have ailments on the back of your diet. If you make the hard choices today, which is putting in the hours of exercise, preparing a nice healthy meal, yes, that's hard because that requires time, but eventually life will be easy because you get to live longer, enjoy a more fulfilling life because you have good, healthy habits for your lifestyle.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, we can sit here and talk for hours. We've already been talking for an hour and I'm conscious of time, but what I'm going to ask you is one final question is, what does the winning mindset actually mean to you?
For me, the winning mindset is your ability to focus on what matters most. If you're able to channel your focus towards the things that actually matter, then you're going to make far more progress in months than many people make in years. That's what the winning mindset is about, is your ability to focus on what matters most and not to be distracted by all of these shiny objects and to give in to the demands on your attention. And this is why when we think about productivity, it's less about doing more and more about doing less, simplifying things so you can focus on the action that will really move the needle towards winning in life.
That's amazing. I think that's so important that you take that into consideration, because I know I'm guilty of it, focusing on shiny object syndromes. And I know we all are to some degree, and to maintain that what really matters to you the most and to focus on that requires a lot of energy. And it requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of patience as well, because that success, that winning mindset may not occur to you immediately. So you need to really, like what you say, future pacing, what you want to be, how you want to live your life. Remind yourself the decisions that you're making, you know, today, to be in the position that you want to be in tomorrow. I mean, it's amazing, Simon. We can sit here talking for hours on
Absolutely,
end. But,
absolutely.
you know, just tell me how people can find, one, the copy of your book, two, you on social media, and where can they find you if they want to follow you and they want to follow your journey to entrepreneurship and what you're doing. And also, if anyone wants to work with you, you know, one-on-one, how do they find you?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, before I jump to that, two quick thoughts that came to my head. The first is, when we were talking about the winning mindset, it reminded me of something Denzel Washington said when he received an award for his performance in the film Fences. He said to the audience, without commitment, you will never begin. More importantly, without consistency, you will never finish.
Oof.
So that consistency is so important. The ability to execute on the process day in and day out is going to help you get to where you want to be. And for the listeners listening to this, I'll leave you with a question before I share how you can reach out to me. And that question is this, which will hopefully inspire you to take some action today. How much longer will you avoid doing what you are truly capable of in order to continue with what you are comfortable with? Oof. So let that sink in and notice what you notice, and hopefully that will lead you to taking some action today. If you want to find out more about me, you can look on most social media platforms. I'm on all of them. But the three I use the most are YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. My handle on Instagram is @SimonAlexanderO. And if you'd like to purchase a copy of my book, Energize, you can do so on Amazon or any of the major retailers.
Amazing. Simon, I want to say amazing. Thank you very much. It was a true pleasure having you on the Winning Mindset podcast. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking part in everything that we've done so far. If you'd like me to interview anyone specific, remember, you can always drop the comment below or message me directly on Instagram at Wale Adesamoye. Also, if you like this podcast, please share it with one of your friends, one of your family members. The whole idea is we want to try and inspire people to greatness. And greatness doesn't stop with one individual. It's what you've done to inspire others. God bless you all. Let's all get swole like whoa.